you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the big show. We certainly appreciate you guys being here. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you but doesn't judge you and gives you that wonderful Chris Voss Show glow as you're wandering around the universe and talking to people. People just go, my God, there's an aura of glow about you, of wealth, knowledge, power. You just, it's overcoming. That happens to me all the time at whenever I go to Starbucks. It might be because I haven't bathed for a few days too. Anyway, guys, we have some amazing authors returning the show. But in the meantime, you know what? We need you to share the show with your friends and relatives. We're like a multi-level marketing, but without the things where you have to buy stuff. So you just have to share it with five of your friends, family, and relative in your downline. Tell them to go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1, the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. And if you want to buy me a coffee, you can go to buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss. And I'm almost out. So please, for the love of God, fill my cup. Anyway, whatever that means. That sounded like a Bible thing or something. Anyway, guys, we have amazing authors, two authors on the show with us today. They were here recently for their Tom Clancy book, the latest one to come out, and they've got their series books that are out now. It's called Ember, the Tier 1 Thrillers, Book 8, coming out July 2nd, 2024. Brian Williams and Jeffrey Wilson are on the show with us today. They're both Navy veterans and are the writing team behind the Wall Street Journal, Audible, and #1 best-selling Tier 1 series, which has been optioned for television. Brian is a nuclear engineer and Park Leadership Fellow who served as an officer on a fast attack submarine. Jeff is a vascular surgeon and jet pilot who conducted combat operations with their East Coast Navy SEAL team and worked in covert government task forces. He can't even tell you about them. Otherwise, you have to take you to one of those cells in Poland or something. Who's the president?
Black site.
A black site, yeah. He put you on the helicopter. That was back when what's his face was running the country. George Bush was the vice president. Who was the president? I want to say Clooney, but Cheney? Dick Cheney was the president, back when Dick Cheney was the president for Halliburton. So their other works include The Sons of Valor, and I always use that joke, and Shepherd series, and the 24th installment of Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan series, Active Defiance, which they were on the show for. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. How are you?
Great to be back. I tell you, the only reason I keep coming on the show is because of that intro. It's like big.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you've been only on twice, so what the hell?
And I just can't get enough. You know, do it every day.
It's all about the brain bleed. So give us your guys' .coms and any little bio tidbits you want to throw out on top of what I threw out for you guys.
Are you going to make it with like music or something?
If you want. I mean, we could. What kind of music you want? You want some wonky porn music? Like,
I mean, I think the brain bleed theme is what you should do.
Well, the problem is it's got vocals, so we don't have the music on play.
Well, then we'll just say it. It's andrews-wilson.com. Very easy, Andrews-Wilson. That's our website. Everything's there. It lists of all of our books, what order you should read them, what's coming out next, if we have any events. And you can sign up for our newsletter. We only send a couple a year with up-to-date news about our latest releases and cool stuff we got going on. So check it out.
There you go. Jeff?
Yeah, that's, it's Andrews-Wilson. I'm the other half of that. So, yeah, it's just the one. We're one person now. We share a brain from 1,000 miles apart. So there's no place where I end and he begins anymore. It's sad, but that's my life now. So
how do your wives feel about that?
Yeah, that's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for everyone. There's no question.
It's got to be weird in the bedroom. Anyway, guys, so thank you very much for coming to the show. Give us a 30,000 overview of this new book and what's inside, and I'll let you each take a turn at it because I'm kind that way.
Very generous of you.
That's what I
Jeff,
do.
what do you want to go first?
Yeah, so we're excited about Ember because Tier 1 is the tentpole series for Andrews and Wilson. We've got 27 books, but this is the series that started it. This was the first book series that we did together as co-authors. So this is the 8th book in the series. Those of you that have been following along in the series, there's a lot of stuff in Dempsey book 7 where there's some questions left unanswered, and this book definitely gets you on track to know what's going on with the rest of the team. It's almost like a class reunion, isn't it, Brian? Like we get a little bit more backstory of people that you've known and loved for a while. So John Dempsey is back, and Team Ember is back in the trenches doing what they do. Those of you who have not read the series, I will say all of our books are written so that they can be a standalone. So if you don't have to go read 7 books to get yourself ready for this book, if you don't want to, you're welcome to just jump in. You'll enjoy it just as much. There might be a few Easter eggs that go over your head, but you'll still enjoy the ride, I suspect.
There you go. And so when you catch up, you'll probably learn what those Easter. You'll be like, I remember what those
Now
were.
I get it.
Yeah. So you guys write several different series of books. Is that correct?
We do. We write. Tier 1 was our first big series, so that one is continuing. Partway into the Tier 1 series, we introduced a character named Chunk Redman. He's a SEAL who he sort of started almost as comic relief. He was like to balance out Dempsey's sort of brooding aggression and Dempsey-ness. And everybody really liked this guy. So we're getting all these emails about Chunk. So we decided to spin off a series called Sons of Valor. And so that has 3 books out in the series. It's our most highly rated series. I mean, people really, really love Chunk and that series. So we're writing book 4, Sons of Valor 4 right now. It's going to come out next summer. We have the Shepherd series, which is kind of cool. It's a faith-based military thriller. I think we could maybe take credit for inventing that genre. Jeff, is that an overstep to say?
Yeah, I don't think that's an overstep. There's no Amish women on the back of wagons in the entire canon of books. So we've definitely reinvented Christian fiction, I think, in this series. Sure.
And there's no Amish women with automatic weapons in the book.
Right. Not that we weren't tempted. That would have been. I mean, we'll save that for another series because now that you've said it out loud, Brian.
Yeah.
We could. Can
That's
Amish women have automatic
that
weapons?
might be a different demo. We could play around with that.
Yeah, play around with the demographic. But that 4th book is coming out. That's already written. It's coming out next spring. What else do we have? 4 Minutes. Book 1 is out, and there are plans for the next book in that series, although no date. And then, of course, now we are the authors writing Jack Ryan for the Clancy estate. Act of Defiance came out, and we now have the next book in that series. It's called Defense Protocol. Comes out in December. So our wives don't like us because we are doing too much, and we're never giving them any attention anymore. So,
but our characters get a lot of our attention, so they're happy.
They're very happy.
There you go. Well, it's good to keep someone happy.
Yeah.
I mean, most of the wives are probably down at Birkenstock or Birkenbag or whatever the hell that is, and Target every day. So I'm sure they're appreciating the credit card action there you guys are generating with these book sales and all the reviews you get. So tell us a little story about both of you guys. And how you guys grew up, what influenced you. You guys both did military service. What made you want to get into that? And then what made you start writing, or when did you start writing? When did you know you had a knack for it?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start. Mine's kind of boring and uninteresting.
Well, calm down.
So yeah, no, mine is.
You're listening. Tune out for 5 minutes.
Yeah, my bio reads like fiction. When we first started writing together, Brian said, "Dude, you got to change this bio, man. It's like it sounds like you're making it up." Because my mom says I can't keep a job. I have attention deficit disorder or something. So I've done a lot of things, as you said in the intro. Like I've been a surgeon, I've been a pilot, I worked in the Navy. I was with the special warfare teams at the JSOC level for a while, and I've done other things in addition to that. But for me, storytelling was always part of it. So that's where our stories are very different. I started writing stories when I was like my daughter's age, 8 or 9 years old.
Wow.
Published my first short story when I was 14. So I've just, telling stories, even though I've done a lot of other things in my life, being a storyteller has always been a part of it. at every stage of my life. So for me, making the transition from the military to being a full-time writer felt pretty natural. I mean, obviously on the financial side, my wife would say that seems very unnatural to take that risk, but it worked out pretty well. It's just something I've always done. So my story is a little different than yours, right, Brian?
Yeah, I think, I never anticipated going into the military. Like in high school, I didn't have any military service in my family. And, but when it was a time to apply for college, I was looking at the cost of college, and ROTC looked like a really good option for helping me pay for school. So I got a Navy ROTC scholarship and ended up on the submarine community. And, in the submarine community, especially when you're deployed, there's long periods where there's not a whole lot going on, at least in the back of the boat, which is the engine room, right? So you're rigged for quiet, you're sneaking around, and you've got long watches. And so, one of the ways when I was a junior officer, I would sort of pass the time is I would collect stories and I'd save them up. So if I go into port, I'd ask people for funny things that happen, and I'd save all these stories. When we were underway, I'd tell stories sort of in the old tradition of like verbal storytelling, like
Story
sitting around the campfire. But instead of sitting around the campfire, we're sitting around the nuclear reactor.
Yeah, like a griot story collector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was sort of the genesis of my interest in storytelling, because it's rewarding, and it's rewarding to read a really good story too. And that's the other half of the equation. When you're underway or you're in the military, you're reading military thrillers or spy thrillers. And so, I remember reading Hunt for Red October on the submarine underway. I remember watching the movie in the wardroom. We probably watched it a dozen times, so these types of characters are inspired by the real men and women that are doing the work. And what's funny is the real men and women that are doing the work are reading about the characters that the military thriller authors are writing. So it is a community of storytelling and action and storytelling, beginning storytelling. And so that's kind of cool that we're both in the business now of telling stories about the people that we serve with, the people that we once were, the people that maybe will become our nation's warriors, in the next 10 to 15 years. So
there you go. So you guys have interwoven a lot of your military experience into the books. Is that correct?
Oh, 100%. I mean, this is with Active Defiance. It was our first time to really get into submarine community, submarine warfare. There was a little bit, but between the two of us, we've served in a variety of communities. But to be honest, I think what we really channel from our military background, more than technology or how a sub works or how a SOP Mod M4 works or whatever, is more the ethos and sort of the characters and the sacrifice, the commitment. I think that team and mission before self kind of lifestyle that is bred into you, it's something to be proud of. It's something that a civilian community could probably benefit from focusing on more than some do. So that I think is what we bring more than anything. It's not, our stuff tends not to be, the superhero, invincible, bullets bouncing off of them as they whack all the bad guys. We tend to write them a little more realistically and show the sacrifice and the teamwork and the brotherhood that comes as a result. No question that comes from our background.
There you go. A lot of my military friends, they always talk about the brotherhood. I remember I had one friend who was, I think he was a Marine. He was a sniper, but he wanted to go do a 4th tour of duty in Iraq. And he was just lost over here. Like he would just sit and play video games all day and stay to himself. And I was like, you're really going to do 4th tour of duty in Iraq? And he goes, Chris, over there, I have my purpose. I have my brotherhood. I have people that have my back. Here I'm on my own. It's kind of sad, but
it's a real thing, Chris. And I got to tell you, there's another element too. And it's that, it's not like we're going to liberate Paris and then take down Hitler and it's over. This war on terror globally has been nonstop for 25 years. Yeah. And so there's this emotion that you have, this feeling that your place is with your teammates. And so unless the whole team, the whole unit comes back and we all get out of the military together, there's always that feeling of like, well, who am I to be sitting by the pool with my wife while my brothers are downrange doing this thing, and God, how am I going to feel if something bad happens? Not that you really believe you're the key to the whole thing. Like it's all going to be okay.
They'd be fine if I was there.
Yeah, exactly. It's not that. It's just the idea that you're not there with your
they're
brother.
being part of the team, part of the tribe.
Yeah, and I think that's been really hard. And I think the other thing you see, and probably your Marine sniper friend will tell you the same thing. All those experiences that catch up to you and cause problems for veterans down the road, they don't catch up to you while you're still doing it. When you're still doing it, it's like I'll never forget when I left after I got out of the Joint Task Force world, which was, I guess, 2012 or 13, something like that. All of a sudden, I'm having all these thoughts and dreams and stuff, nightmares about stuff that had happened in 2006. And it's not like I never thought about that stuff. I thought about it. I was like, that sucked, but I'm fine. It's all good. And then all of a sudden it comes crashing in on you. So we really do in our books. I will tell you that it's important to us to reflect some of that stuff, not in a whiny way, but in a way that makes people appreciate, the sacrifice and service. And the other thing is the sacrifice of the families. My wife would never say this, but I honestly believe the sacrifice that the spouses that stay back, that's a bigger sacrifice. Like when I'm downrange, I know I'm okay. When Brian's, whatever spooky port he's in, sitting on the bottom, spying on people, he knows he's okay.
Yeah.
His wife doesn't, and my wife doesn't. And I think that is a way harder sacrifice, to be the one wringing their hands at home and worrying. And so we do try to show some of that in these books as well.
That's good. That's good. Do you find a lot of veterans you are appealed, find your books appealing?
I think a lot of veterans do, because it sort of goes back to what you just said to open this conversation, that you're recapturing that sense of community. So even if you are home, you get to feel like, oh yeah, this is a world that I understand. This is a world that I miss. And so you feel that sense of community. It's amazing how many people will email us and say that they're on their second or third read through of the Tier 1 series. And we even had one, I saw on social media today, a guy was saying, like, I'm going to finish up my fifth read through of Tier 1 in preparation for Ember. Why would somebody do that? Why would you go back to stories you already knew what's going to happen? It's not because it's just the story. It's because the characters give you this sense of community or sense of, friendship. They feel like real people. And so something about the community of characters that we've invented, resonates with people. And so, I also think that this community of writers represents too. There's Don Bentley and Josh Hood and Jack Stewart and Brad Taylor. And these are all veterans who, are writers in the community that we feel like we have the same sort of brotherhood with now as storytellers. So that's kind of cool too, that there's that component.
There you go. Well, that's awesome. I mean, community is good. Can you tell us about some of the characters in the book? Maybe just kind of a quick rundown on them.
Yeah, I mean, the lead character is John Dempsey. He's sort of the tentpole of the series. And you hear that term tentpole, but what does it really mean? It means in this series, it means that he's kind of the guy that's holding up all the weight of the organization. And that's important, because anybody who's been deployed or been in a unit knows that the burden of leadership is quite high, and how individual people manage their stress and manage situations, difficult situations, what sort of moral compass they have, and how they treat others really impacts, the success and then the emotional and mental health of the people performing in the unit. So John Dempsey is that tentpole. He is that guy who's willing to say, he'll stick his hand up and say, I'll lead, I'll carry more in my pack than everybody else. I'll deal with, if you need help, I'll take on your burden. I'll take on your burden. I'll take on your burden. And so everything builds around John, and then sort of the rest of the team. I'm not saying that they don't matter. They're incredibly important. And I think maybe I'll kick it over to Jeff to answer, sort of round out the rest of the team. But John and his moral compass and his devotion to duty is the hallmark of the Ember book and the Tier 1 series.
100%. That, and I think what was fun about Dempsey is the evolution. This is a guy that was a door kicking, JSOC SEAL, which is a very high level of function, but it's still a very black and white world. Things are right, things are wrong. The mission is the mission. And as he transitions into this spookier world of task force operations, he has to evolve as a human being into something different to be able to survive there. And just like in the SEAL teams, he can't do that without an entire team around him, whether it's the intelligence people like this quirky genius Ian Baldwin and his guys that work for him, Chip and Dale, Kelso Jarvis, who once ran the team and by now has evolved into, he was the DNI and then eventually other things. And then his intimate team members. We have a sniper, Elizabeth Grimes, who starts out in book 1. To be honest, writing her, we didn't even care for her that much, and the readers found her a little bit abrasive. But as she evolved and began to understand the mentality of these operators, she became something better than she once was, and now I think she's a lot of people's favorite character. Dan Munn, we actually I got to spend dinner last night with a real life Dan Munn, because there is one that we named that character after.
Really?
But Dan Munn is in our series is a former SEAL who becomes a surgeon that works with the task force. And when the entire task force is wiped out, the original JSOC SEAL team, he then goes back into covert operations as an operator. So he brings some really strange dynamic to the team because he's a surgeon, but also a shooter. And so it's a really fun cast of characters, and there's no red shirts. You know what I mean? There's no the Star Trek disposable characters. We have characters die, but when our characters die, we literally are dripping tears onto our keyboard because they're all real and they're all well developed. So throughout the series, there's been people come and go, but there's no red shirts. Everybody matters. Everybody is part of the team. So that was kind of fun about this series.
That's funny. I didn't register that first.
The red shirts?
No red shirts. Is it Russian? What does he mean? And then, that's funny. You never want to be the guy with the red shirt.
Not on
that
Star
odd
Trek.
man out, Star Trek. Yeah.
Hey, we're cast. Here's your costume. It's like that.
Yeah.
One episode, that's what I get.
I ain't wearing the red shirt. I know how that works. I don't know. I'm the one that gets eaten by the aliens or dead. How come it's always them? It never mind. Anyway, so it sounds like a lot of fun, a great read. People love your guys' work. How many books do you guys have now total?
I think we're coming up on 24 books between us.
Holy crap.
We've co-authored most of those. I think Jeff has 4 solo projects. I have 3, and then we've done at least 20 together. So
nice,
a lot.
Nice. Yeah, and you guys are pumping at quite the express rate of getting the books out. You've got the other Tom Clancy in December, I think you said.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Defense Protocol in December. The 4th Shepherd's book comes out next spring.
Wow.
Yeah,
we're gonna have you guys on hopefully back a lot. How do you guys work together? How do you manage a working relationship? Is it hard? Was it hard at first? Did it take a while to gel, or did you guys just kind of like right away you just became a great working team?
I think it always worked from the beginning, and I will say this: one of the risks of this partnership was we were friends first. So we were both writing. We met at a conference. We didn't know each other in the military, but we connected because we shared that heritage, I think, and also similar family values. Kids the same age. We just became like best friends. And it was a couple years after our friendship that we decided to write together. It was actually Brian's idea. And I do think that I went into that thinking, there's a risk. This is either going to be a friendship that's forged forever, or the guy won't take my calls in about 5 months. So it was going to be one or the other was my guess. But I don't think we ever have struggled with the relational side of this, mostly because from the very beginning, we're smart enough to sit down and say, let's make sure we're on the same page, not just creatively, but on the business side of it. Like, what are we trying to achieve? What's our goal? What's our 1-year plan? What's our 3-year plan? And being on that same page, I think, helped. But I think the biggest thing is that we're military veterans and that we served in the Navy.
There you go.
Not together. But that mission before self is just part of who you are. Like Brian likes to say, one dude doesn't drive an $8 billion submarine. And in real life, sometimes on TV, but in real life, one superhero SEAL doesn't kick in a door and take down all the bad guys, right? It takes a team. Sure. And so we just brought that to this. We're like, look, everything, there's no ego involved. There's no your stuff, my stuff. It's all our stuff. The mission is to make the best book, and egos have to be put aside. And I think that's why it works.
There you go. Is that true, Jeff or Brian? Brian, is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I think when this started, I was just, and I guess this is just sort of me generally as a person. I'm maybe wildly naive about, like, I just always assume that people will come to a partnership with, integrity and honesty, and we're all working for the same thing. And in the case of Jeff, it was right. I've been wrong with other times, but with Jeff, it was right. So, there's an implicit level of trust there because, and I don't think I ever really thought about that maybe we would fail, or maybe our friendship would implode, or maybe I don't like to think about those negative, like, off ramps, especially when you're getting started, because, I don't know, I guess if you put that out there, maybe you're more likely to, I don't know, but we just started from the beginning with this optimistic view that, this is going to work, like, we're each going to contribute. We're each going to come up with cool ideas, and we're going to have fun writing it. And that's exactly what happened. So
there you go.
when we started writing that book, I think, the book, it took me like 8 years to write Calypso Directive, my first book. And then we powered through tier 1 in like 4 months. I mean, that was incredible. I never thought could finish a book in 4 months. And now, that we've repeated that model. That's about what we do, a book every 3 to 4 months. Yeah. And we've been doing it ever since. So it's fun.
How do you guys, if you don't mind me asking, I don't know if you want to, this is proprietary, but how do you guys write? Like, does one of you write certain characters or chapters, or?
No, we both write simultaneously, and I think it wouldn't be as fun if we didn't, right? And we also get to write all the different characters, and so we're writing at the same time. We write third person, multi point of view characters. So, Jeff might be writing Dempsey's POV, and I'm writing the villains, and then we'll do that for a couple chapters, and maybe it'll swap to I'll do a couple Dempsey chapters. He's doing Grimes and the villain, and then one of us will do Jarvis this chapter, next chapter. And so what that does, it really, I think, accomplishes two things. Number one, I think it keeps it intellectually interesting for both of us. It doesn't become stale. Well, I have to write this person every time, and you get to write that person. So there's none of that. We both get to write all the characters, so that's fun. And two, because we're both writing all the characters, our individual perceptions of what those characters are come out in the chapters we write. And so then between the whole book, you get, once we go through the editing process, both of our brains and our emotions and our thoughts inform the personality of all the characters.
It's kind of interesting, guys, you're able to write tandem in the same voices of the characters too.
I think part of that is not that we probably at this point, this many books in, we probably even the first version of every chapter has a similar voice. But one of the things that makes this work, and also is highly efficient, is we are editing as we go. And what I mean by that is every few chapters, if Brian is writing, he's written 3 chapters and I've written 3, we swap them, and I rewrite his chapters and he rewrites mine. And so every single chapter that goes into the master file in the rough draft, we've both written that chapter. Either we wrote the first time and the other guy rewrote it, or vice versa. And so that gives you a little editing advantage, but mostly what it does is what you're talking about, Chris. It brings that one voice because we've both touched every single word of every single chapter.
There you go. That's the hardest thing to do, especially when you write a book. I found is when it goes to editing, you've got to have somebody who can write in your voice or can edit in your voice. And so it sounds like you guys kind of edit yourselves a little bit, each other.
We do. That's the cornerstone of our process. And and I think, if Jeff mentioned earlier when you were asking when we get started about the ego component, for us, identifying that this is a business, it's not about pride of ownership from a prose perspective. We don't try to be like, oh, I wrote this really cool sentence. Like, let me read it to you. The sentence is amazing. How smart am I? You know, like we don't do that. What we do is we have pride of ownership of the finished product of the characters. And so, you know, we want when somebody picks up Sons of Valor and they're like, they read it like, damn, that was a good book. Like that's what we're going for. It's not about, oh, Jeff wrote chapter 17 and Brian wrote 18. Which chapter do you like better? It doesn't work that way because we both worked on every damn chapter in the book. So we're just proud of the book itself. And I don't know if a lot of writers could divorce their egos. Yeah. I think that's why you don't see so many co-author pairs that work like us, because you really have to be like, oh, yeah, he really can change this.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. You know, so
that's the reason a lot of bands break up and everything else. You know,
yeah.
the egos and you know, well, I did that part and you did that part. I remember I think one of my favorite bands, Rush. There was 3 of them, and they finally just got tired of having that conversation of who wrote what, and you know, because everybody kind of contributed. And they're like, we'll just put all 3 that we're all writers on that.
So that's real, Chris, because I will tell you that we are now at the point. This sounds insane. This sounds like I'm making this. Now it sounds like I'm making it up. But we're at the point now where that system is working so well. My wife will read a book, and she'll go, "Oh, chapter 11. That was you, right?" And I swear to you, I can't tell her. I'm like, I mean, there are some that I remember writing. But it's not unusual for me to say, I can't tell you. I'm struggling to remember. I don't know if I wrote it first or he wrote it first. I don't know. I just don't know. So when we put Andrews and Wilson, it really is just like you're talking about with Rush. Like to do it any other way would be absurd because it's just wouldn't be true.
Well, combined, you guys make great books and people love them. Give us your final thoughts as we go out and all that good stuff. Tell people where they can buy the book.
My final thought is that between the 2 of us, we make almost one good author.
And my final thought is books are amazing. You can read them in different formats. So if you like a physical book, go to your local bookstore, help support independent booksellers. If you're into digital, we do have Kindle and Nook versions, but also we have amazing voice actors that perform our books. So Ray Porter reads the Tier 1 series. He's incredible. If you've never listened to an audiobook, I highly encourage you to check out Audible and download Ember. You can listen in your car or your way to work.
There you go. Well, thank you very much, guys. Give us your .coms too as we go out.
Andrews-Wilson.com. It's your one-stop shop. Everything else is linked there. Like he said, there's a newsletter, but there's a page where you can find out everything we got going on in TV and film, which maybe we can talk about next time. We've got a lot of stuff going on there. Everything about every book. We even have a fan page where our fans. What's really cool is our fans interact with each other now. It's like this really cool community. It's I think what we were hoping it would be, but didn't believe it could become with the website. So it's no one's going to sell you anything. There's no spam. Just come by, say hi. You can email us there. It's the one-stop shop. Andrews-Wilson.com.
There you go. So thank you very much, guys, for coming on the show. We'd love to have you back on the show. Jeff, did we get your .coms?
Same one. They're all
same one. There you go. He's getting to me. So, guys, we really appreciate you guys coming on the show. Please come back for your future books. We'd love to have you continue on the successful stuff that you guys are doing. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
There you go. And thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss, one of the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. If you want to buy me a coffee, go to buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss. As always, be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.